Hey everybody, welcome back to the Quinn Films Behind the Scenes channel. And last week I released my latest short film, The Perfect Day, which involves a CG robot that I had to composite in using visual effects. And this took me like 2 weeks to do, and it could have took me way shorter if I had a tutorial that could have guided me through it all. And so I'd like to make a tutorial for you guys so you guys can do this process way faster. And I'm going to go from filming all the way to the finished product, unedited, my raw view of all the visual effects. I'm going to be using After Effects and Cinema 4D, but this will probably work on other 3D applications and other compositing applications as well. So yeah, that's what we're going to be doing today. Enjoy. So there's a few things to keep in mind when filming. The first thing that I like to do is have your shot very still, stable. And it would be really best to film it on a tripod. That would be like the absolute best thing to do, because then you don't have to track. But let's say you want like a lot of motion, you want 3D cool motion through the Z-axis, then you are going to need to shoot it handheld. And if your phone or your camera that you're using has a stabilizing option, my lens has a stabilizing option. If yours does, then I would highly recommend turning that on, because that's going to stabilize your footage a little bit. And even if it's just a little bit, it will help. The next thing is visual contrast. You want to make sure you have a lot of visual contrast in the ground. This will just really help later. Okay, now back inside. Okay, everybody. So here I am in After Effects, and I shot this footage outside. This is the footage that I shot inside. And keep in mind here. Look at all this visual contrast and all this stuff that you got on the tiles here. And we also want to have a ground plane. This will just help us a lot when we bring our footage into Cinema 4D. To have a ground plane. So like basically, if you see the ground in your footage, that is really good. You want to be able to see that ground. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to want to do is camera track this. So basically, we're going to try to create a camera in 3D space that matches every exact movement of our real cam. So if we just go up here to the effects and presets and just search in 3D cam, or you can search in the whole thing if you want. We got 3D camera tracker here, and we can just bring that on to our footage. And it's just going to say this, but you don't need to worry about that right now. There's 2 camera trackers I got here. Anyway, so basically what it's going to start doing is initializing. And if we go down to the Advanced tab here, we're going to want to turn on Detailed Analysis. And that's basically we'll just do a better job, right? If you turn on Detailed Analysis. A lot of the time you don't actually need to turn on this box, but I always like to turn it on just for safety reasons. So it'll just initialize for a little bit, analyze in background, and it will probably take about a minute. So yeah. So after it's done, you'll see all these little tracker points here. And as you see, if you scrub through the footage, they move with the footage. They're stuck to all of the footage. And as you can see, we got them all over the place here, but we're going to be actually using the ones on the ground. So we can just find kind of like a little plane here. We can just select a few of them if you want. And as you can see, it'll create a little plane, a little target. The first thing you're going to want to do is right-click it and create Set Ground Plane and Origin. So this is going to set the ground plane. So that means that Cinema 4D will know that this is the ground, which is really good, because if you don't do this, it'll think it's the sky or some other place, and it'll end up being really weird. So you want to press Set Ground Plane and Origin, and then you're going to want to right-click it again and create Solid and Camera. Okay. So that's going to create a solid and a camera. So right now we have a camera that moves in 3D space that moves our exact movement of our real camera in real life. So first things that you're going to want to do here is if you go to rotation, we can just reorient this just to kind of match the tile patterns. I just like that. It looks better for me. And this is kind of where our robot's going to be. We just have it just create a solid because it's kind of nice to see what we're doing it. Okay, so the next thing you're going to want to do is run this free script. I'll have a link in it. I'll have a link for it in the description. It's a completely free script, and it's called Normalize Track. Okay, so you can just download it. It'll come up here. It's really easy. I'm not going to show you how to do it in this tutorial because it will just make it overly long. So then you can just click on it, and it's going to bring up this little box here, and you're going to want to click on that. But before you click on that, you're going to want to rename your solid to ground. Otherwise, it won't know what one's the ground, and it won't know what to do. So you're going to click this little button here, and it'll just gonna make it'll help Cinema 4D identify like the scale and size of everything. and it just works better because After Effects and Cinema 4D have different versions. They work differently, so just doing this will just help significantly. And now you're ready to export this into Cinema 4D. So if we go to File, the first things you want to do is just save it. So after you save it, you're going to want to go to File, and then you're going to want to go to Export, and then you're going to go Maxon Cinema 4D Exporter. So this is going to bring all this stuff in the Cinema 4D. And basically it's just saying it won't export the 2D layers, but that's totally fine. You can just click OK, and then you just want to rename this. I'm just going to call this one Robot, and then save this. Okay. Now you're going to want to open that up in Cinema 4D. Okay, so when you open that up inside Cinema 4D, you're going to see this. And if we just press the play button here, you're going to notice that it's just going to recreate the exact camera movements of our footage that we shot, which is like so cool. When I first did this, I was just amazed by this. It was just so cool for me. Anyway, we can click on our camera and we can go out of our camera here. So as we can see, this is our virtual camera, which matches the exact movements, well, maybe not exact, but really close to the exact of our camera that we film with in real life. As you can see here, got all these tiny little keyframes. Okay, that's pretty cool, I think. Anyway, as you can see, we can just delete this ground solid now. We don't really need it anymore. We're going to need a robot in there instead. So you can head over to our good old friend Google. I'm going to head over to Turbo Squid, and we can just click on Turbo Squid, and we can find a robot model. So if we just search up robot here, I'm going to go with a free model because for this tutorial, and in the movie I actually used a free model too, but you can go for like a $1,000 model. It doesn't really matter for this tutorial. But yeah, you can just scrub through here and just find a model. I don't really know where mine is. It's saved on my desktop, so I know where it is now, but I don't really know where to find it on Turbo Squid. But you can just find a nice little model, and then you're going to bring that into Cinema 4D. So everybody, I got my robot that I got from Turbo Squid in here. You know, there's not very much lighting on him, and it just looks kind of bad, right? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to turn on our physical render. So if we go into the render settings here, we're going to want to change that to physical. And then turn on depth of field and motion blur if you want to. We don't need to turn on motion blur yet. I'll turn that on when I'm about to render it. Okay, so we can turn that off, and as you can see, now we have our physical renderer on. So as you can see now, we have our physical renderer on, which is just more accurate renderer. The next thing we're going to want to do is turn on global illumination, okay? So if we just go down to global illumination, we're going to turn that on, and we're also going to turn on ambient occlusion, okay? So now if we render, you can't see anything because it's a physical render. We don't have any lights in here, so we can't see anything, but we're going to add an HDRI later, so that'll be cool. But now that we got our robot textured, we're going to want to go and bring that into Mixamo. So if you haven't heard of Mixamo, it's pretty cool. I love Mixamo. It basically has all these motion capture animations. As you can see, I already got my robot in here. It's pretty easy to do if you haven't done it already. There's several tutorials that show you how to do that. I'll link them down below. And as you can see, we got like all these really cool, fun little dances and stuff. It's really cool if you don't have a motion capture suit. Like most people don't have that. So using Mixamo is absolutely awesome. What we're going to search in is walking. And there's definitely a lot of walking options here. A lot of them with guns and stuff, but we don't want anyone with guns. Let's just do a simple walking animation. I know this isn't what I actually used in the real movie, but whatever. So down here we can kind of customize it a little bit. Not much, but we can kind of do it a little bit. We can make it a little longer. As you can see with our zoom, if we go to a zoom, we can kind of bring that out a little bit. And you can see him walking. It's full walking. And you can see here we can kind of play around with all this different stuff, like make him a little slower and stuff. I'm just going to kind of bring that back up to kind of as close as normal as I can be. And then also, of course, we can kind of do that arm. Of course, we don't want that, so I'm just going to bring that back to like 50 or whatever. And this is perfect. Okay, so now you're ready to download it. So you can download this animation. And we can just leave this how it is. 30 frames per second is pretty good. You can choose 24, but I think that's a little bit too choppy. As I can see, I've tried downloading in 24, it just doesn't really look as good, and 60 is way too overflowed. So yeah, you're just going to download this as is. That'll take a little minute. And then if we head back into Cinema 4D, we can just bring in that animation that we got and bring it in here. Okay, everybody, so as you can see, I just searched up walking here, and I got my file that I downloaded from Mixamo. It's going to be an FBX file, and we can just bring that into Cinema 4D by pressing open. And when it will bring up the sign saying, do you want it resign, include in tasks? And you always want to click no for that. So yeah. As you can see, your robot's in here, but it's so tiny and it's weird and black and stuff. Now, I don't know if your robot's going to have this weird black texture on it, but mine does, and it's really simple. Just delete it. You know, it's just a weird thing. Okay, so my robot's tiny, as you can see here, and you think you could just scale it up like this, right? Nope, because look what happens when you scale it up. It looks all wiggly and weird and does not look good. Okay, so as you can see, now it's little again. And basically, this took me a really long time to figure out how to do this. Out of everything in this entire project here, this was probably the hardest part, figuring out how to scale this thing. Because it's kind of easy if you think about it, but it's kind of really hard. There's not very many tutorials on it, and it's really hard to kind of find. So I'm just going to explain it here real simple. So you're going to have to group your objects first. So if we just highlight both of them and then press Alt-G, that'll group them together. And then we can rename this... just rename this robot. So robot. Okay, so now it's called robot, and basically all you need to do is just scale it up in here in the chord instead of here, right? Because I don't even know why, but you just have to scale it up here. It just works better. So let's say it's like 1 right now, so let's say maybe 5 by 5 by 5 by 5. That would work, but I think it's bigger than that, so let's just go 15. Okay, and then by 15 by 15, and then it's perfect. So as you can see, now we got it in. So if we just play it, that's kind of cool, isn't it? Okay, so as you can see, the animation ends at 55, which is actually shorter than our clip was, so we can just bring that frame rate down to 55, and then it lasts long. Okay, now that it's in a group, you can also move it around. So if you want, we can just move it back a little bit. Oh god, okay. We can just move it back a little bit, and then if we go back into our camera, that's a little bit better. Okay, so now that we got our animation in here, it's starting to look kind of cool, I guess. Well, a little bit, I guess. So next is the textures. So if we render this out right now, like I said before, you can't see anything. So basically just add that texture matte that we made before, just add that onto your robot. And as you can see, now your robot's nice and textured. It looks kind of cool, right? It looks kind of cool, but we're not nearly done yet. So as you can see, when we render it, there's no light, which is a big problem, obviously, and we need to add lighting in here. So for realistic lighting, we're going to use something called an HDRI, which stands for High Dynamic Range Image. And you can find them on the internet. You can make them as well using your DSLR or a Insta360 camera. But I don't have it. I don't have an Insta360 camera, and I just find it easier just to buy them, just because I find that easier. Okay, so if we go to Google, our good old friend Google, and we just search in HDRI Haven, it has free HDRI models, which is just amazing, and they're high quality too. 100% free HDRIs for everyone. And they look like amazing too. They're really good high quality, so we can browse them all. And 16K plus. 16K. No, that's probably gonna like destroy your computer, but you could download it if you're like insane. And you can like choose different ones like studio light, indoor, many different things. Outdoor, you can choose all of them. So we're gonna choose an outdoor model, and you're gonna want to kind of match the lighting to what your clip was. So I shot this kind of midday-ish, so I'm going to try to find that midday type of light, kind of like this. So we can just click on this. As you can see, it's a beautiful image, and I'm going to download the 4K one. 8K is good if you're going like really close in and stuff, but 4K is normally good. I wouldn't go more than 4K. I wouldn't go under 4K though. Okay, so let's download the 4K one. As you can see, it's just downloading. And basically what you're going to do is create a new default material. I'm gonna call this one HDRI, and we're gonna turn off the color and the reflectance, okay? And you're just gonna turn on the luminance. That's the only thing you want to turn on. And basically, now if we go into Finder and we go to Downloads, we got this this HDRI, and we're just gonna bring that in to the luminance, and we're just gonna press no for that, and boom, there we go. You have your HDRI. It's done. It's that simple. The next thing you're gonna do is create a sky. So we can just create a sky here and add that to the sky. All right, and there it is. But you're gonna notice it's there, but it's not doing anything to this robot if we render it out. It's not really putting any light on this robot, and it's not using any reflections onto this robot. So the next thing we're gonna do is play around with these textures a little bit, okay? So if we go into our reflectance here, we're gonna add a backman, okay? And that's, if you see here, gonna make him like really reflecty. If we just render this out, it's gonna make him really shiny. It's basically this shiny little thing. So, okay, so what you need to do to fix that is bring down this little thing to additive, okay? And basically, that's gonna make it a lot better. So if we render this out, we can, you know, he's still really shiny. It looks like he's like plastic or something, but it's a lot better. And by the way, just to stop me from like rendering this out each time, we can turn on an interactive render region, which is kind of almost like a live renderer. So if we go down here to interactive render region, as you can see, we bring in our interactive render region. But it is kind of annoying having it on your main screen. So what I like to do is go to Panel and New View Panel. As you can see, our New View Panel. And if we just press this button, bring it over here, and there we go. So if we want to, it's a little big. Sometimes I like to have this on this end and that on the other end. So there we go. And then we have our live viewer there, and that's nice. We can also turn up this resolution a little bit by just clicking this little arrow thing here. Let's turn up the resolution just a little bit. Okay, then we can see our live view of what's happening. Also, if you want this to be on our 3D camera tracker, if we go to Cameras, Use Camera, 3D Camera Tracker, as you can see, it's already checked. But on this end, it's not checked. So if we go to Cameras, Use Camera, 3D Camera Tracker, and then they're both on the same camera, which is nice. Okay. So let's go back into our robo. And as you can see, it's still too strong. So we can change around with this like roughness, reflective strength. So for one, this reflective strength is at like 100. So we can bring that down to like 10%. As you can see, it will just load over here. That's a lot better. Let's just kind of see what's going on. It takes a little bit longer to render. As you can see, he's still quite reflective, but definitely a lot better. Like this is almost perfect. And yeah, you can kind of just bring down this. I think that's actually good, you know? I really feel like that's good. Maybe bring down this just a little bit more, and that's maybe a little bit better, but I feel like that's good. Okay. So yeah, now basically we have our animation, we have everything we need, as you can see, but the only thing that's missing is where do we put our robot? Because if we go back into After Effects, he's going to be here, but he might not be in the right place. We don't know where to put him. So what you need to do is head back into After Effects, and as you can see, we just got our animation here. And what we need to do is we need to see this in Cinema 4D. Otherwise, we won't know where the robot is. Right now, the robot might be like way off to the side. You don't know. So basically, just unhighlight this ground and anything else that's going to be like interfering with this, and then basically go and press Control Command M to bring it into the render queue. Add it into the render queue, and then basically here it automatically saves to a QuickTime file. I don't know what it is on Windows, but on Mac it saves to a QuickTime file. To change that, and we want it to be a JPEG sequence, right? Because Cinema 4D doesn't accept QuickTimes. Basically, it doesn't accept videos. It only accepts photos to be the background. So we can just make this a JPEG sequence instead. Okay. And now this is a JPEG sequence. I want to save this in a folder, a specific folder for this. Otherwise, it's just gonna like mess up your desktop. So I'll basically create a new folder, and I'm just gonna type this to be robot JPEG. All right. And then add that in, and basically just save that and render it out. So that while that's rendering, we can go back into Cinema 4D and then create a new default material basically, and go into the color here, we got all of these different photos, basically just rendered out basically every single frame of the video. So yeah, we don't want all this. This is going to be kind of hard. So basically what we have to do is Cinema 4D automatically recognizes JPEG sequence if we just bring in the first frame. So all we need to do is bring in the first frame and just press no, and boom, it's already a JPEG sequence. But if we just all of a sudden go here and create a background, so we can just see the background, as you can see, we can see the background here. It's actually not a video yet. As you can see, it's not a video. So to make it a video, go back into the material and go into this little thing here, go to animation, and then press calculate. Okay, and it's just going to calculate it, but it's still not going to be an animation until you go into this little viewport setting here and press check animate preview. And now, as you can see, it is an animation. All right. So I am just going to exit this view for a minute, and I'm going to turn off our interactive render region because we don't really want it right now. And as you can see, we have our robot walking. It's pretty cool. It reminds me of The Perfect Day. It reminds me of what had happened in the movie. It brings back good memories of when I, spent weeks doing this. And yeah, okay. So one of the things is we turned off the sky, so now there's no reflectance onto him. So if we turn back on the sky, we can't see the background. So there's a problem here, but it's really easy to fix. If we go and right-click and we go to render tags and then compositing. If we go into the compositing area and we uncheck scene by camera, basically it's still there, it just can't be seen by the camera. So that's just how you fix that. It's pretty simple. So yeah, we got our animation here, and the next thing we have to do is kind of blend this together, because as you can see, the robot's the right height, right size for me. Also, we can change him to be a different height and different size now that we can see our background. But for me, I like this. But one, we have to do shadows. So right now there's no shadows at all, and you'll notice that this is another thing that really took me a while to figure out. So there's no shadows if we just render this now, because this is a background. This isn't actually going to be seen in the finished render. This is just kind of for reference. There's nothing underneath him. So as you can see, if we create a plane, put this right underneath the robot, and we render this, you're going to notice there is a shadow there. So my problem was, how do we have an invisible layer that has a shadow? That only a shadow, not the actual plane itself, because we can't have this plane here. That's going to be off. We need the shadow, not the plane. So it's actually pretty easy to find. There's a few ways to do it. It's basically making a shadow catcher. I know there's many different ways to do it, but the easiest way that I could find is basically applying that same texture that we used for the background onto the plane. And you're going to be like, what is happening? But it's actually pretty simple. So you go here, and in this UVW mapping, you're going to change that from UVW mapping to frontal. And as you can see, it's matched now with the actual layer. So I'm just going to make this a little bigger in both directions. But one thing you're going to notice is it's darker. It's a lot darker. If we render this out, you're going to kind of see like the lines of where the plane would have been. If we just render this, as you can see, you can kind of see those little lines, which isn't good. So how you change that is if we go into the plane, we're going to go to render tags and then compositing again. And if we go into compositing, you're going to check compositing background. And that removes the harsh edges, basically. If we render, you can kind of still see it a little bit, but it's gone away quite a bit. And you don't really notice it when it actually happens. As you can see, if we just render this, we have a shadow, which is pretty cool. Okay, so if this little plane finds you distracting, which it certainly does with me, I don't think that's going to work on the movie. We can kind of just make it so it works. Like, there's many different things you can do to make it work. I know it's not the most ideal way of doing this, and there are other ways to make a shadow catcher, but I just couldn't figure them out. So yeah, it's just me. So yeah, there we go. It's basically done, which is kind of crazy. But the next thing that you're going to do that you haven't done is, of course, rendering. So we need to prepare this thing to render. And of course, we're going to do the shadow and the main in a different pass. So basically in compositing, we can really have a lot of flexibility. So we're gonna take a few different passes of this thing. So we can just delete our background now. We don't need it anymore. And basically, the next thing that we're gonna do is we're just gonna uncheck the plane. And basically now we just have the robot. So everybody, here I am back in After Effects, and if we just double click here, it'll bring up your Finder window, and as you can see, this is all the different photos. This is all the different PNGs, PNG sequence of basically our render with all the robots. As you can see, it's still currently rendering, so there would be another one, that's about to pop up here. So basically, how After Effects works, you don't even have to select all of them. You only need to click the first frame, similar to Cinema 4D, how we loaded in the JPEG sequence. So if we just click the first frame and then press open, it's going to import that as a video. So as you can see, it's a PNG sequence here, but it acts like a video. So if we just drag that on here, boom, like there you go. There's your robot. It will match with the footage and everything. But of course, we're not done yet. We need to also bring in the shadow. So if we just double click again. Okay, everybody, so here I have my shadow paths. So you can just click one of them and open, and that will create another video. And then you can drag that on as well, and then you're just going to want to put this underneath the robot. Okay, everybody, that's basically it. You get your shadow on and all that stuff. And as you can see, we have our robot in here. And there are a few little color correcting things that I'm going to do here. So if we just go to the effects and presets and just search in curves, when we apply curves over here, we can just kind of play with the RGB a little bit. Make it a little brighter. In this case, I'm actually going to make it a little brighter, and then I'm going to color correct the whole thing later. So we're going to actually try to just make this match the footage as possible, as much as possible. I feel like there's a little bit of reds in there, as you can see, and all that. So then we're going to group all this into a pre-comp. So if we just right click and then press pre-compose, and then you want to make sure you say move all attributes into the new composition. I'm just going to call this one robot, just call it like what it is. And then if we add curves to this whole thing, we can kind of color correct it, kind of bring down that RGB, bring down those shadows, kind of just color correct it to make it what you feel suits best for your whatever you're going for. So yeah, that's basically it. That's basically the whole robot. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. It was a very long one. Yeah. So everybody, I hope you liked my tutorial. It took me a pretty long time to make the tutorial and all that, all so you guys could learn and do this process way faster. As you can see, it's not actually too complicated. Of course, I did it really rushed, and of course, if I had a lot of time, I would have tweaked it to done a lot more compositing. The compositing part is very important, and I feel like I kind of went over that. Also, the Mixamo I didn't get time to do, and the texturing I didn't get time to do. Sorry about that. I just wanted to kind of just show the essential parts, and then you guys can kind of figure it out, the other parts. So yeah, there's going to be a lot more stuff coming onto this channel. As you can see, I'm kind of putting a lot more effort into the Quintil's Behind the Scenes channel. Before I kind of just upload it every so often, like every few months, but now I'm putting a little bit more effort into it. There'll be more videos coming out. There's going to be one coming out this Friday and all that, so I really hope you enjoy, and always remember to have a nice day. Bye.